Greetings and welcome to another Indie Game of the Week here at Words About Games, a weekly series of videos where we take a look at an upcoming indie game that's caught our attention, shine a spotlight on it, and talk a little about why it looks potentially awesome. As always, if you're intrigued by the game we're talking about, you can find a full suite of links to learn more in the description below the video. Today, we're taking a look at Inmost. Inmost is an atmospheric, story-driven platformer that follows three characters. A knight who is sworn to fight against the forces of darkness, a young girl who is all alone, and a creature who feeds on pain. Each of these characters will be playable in separate storylines that will connect together in one narrative of suffering and sacrifice, tied together by a family at the center of everything. I saw the trailer for this game during the indie-focused Nintendo Direct in January without knowing anything at all about it beforehand, and was immediately sent scurrying to Google and Twitter to find out everything I could about it. Inmost looks fantastic just from the 1-minute 23-second announcement trailer that I was lucky enough to catch during the Nintendo stream. For starters, Inmost looks incredibly stylistic. The pixel art style is beautiful in its own right, but married to the muted colour palette that the game is utilising makes for something that simply oozes atmosphere, even just in the short trailer and the GIFs that accompany it on the official website. The pixel art also builds into the creep factor of the game's environments. I've always said that the horror and a pixel art style go hand in hand, and while Inmost isn't an outright traditional horror game, it does seem populated by nightmarish creatures and imagery that look great and very otherworldly. The use of lighting in the promotional materials backs that up, from huge supernatural set pieces to more subtly unsettling cues such as a crash of lightning highlighting a figure shrouded in darkness right outside a door. Inmost looks like it's going to be quite an unsettling game to play. I get the sense of dread won't be the only thing you'll be feeling while you're playing Inmost either. There are a couple of moments in each of the two trailers released for the game that suggest there might be some feels involved in the story. The young child falling off a shelf and cutting themselves on some broken glass, the human-shaped creature, if creature isn't even the right word, who seems to be incredibly distraught as a character murders their companion. These are just brief glimpses and pure speculation on my part, but this might be an emotional journey as much as it is an unsettling one. And then there's the gameplay, which sounds really good and looks really tight and badass. According to the game's description in the press kit, you'll be exploring an abandoned castle full of enemies and secrets. There's a few different gameplay looking styles in the trailers, a fairly standard 2D hack and slash style where you're playing as, I'm assuming, the knight mentioned in the game description. Also what looks like a running section as a dude trying to escape a monster, although since there's a monster listed as a playable character, perhaps you'll be playing as the monster instead. And the young girl who looks like she's having an absolutely terrible time between the creepy shadow dude outside the house and the giant rat in the attic. The game also mentions stealth, puzzles, and luring enemies into traps, so it seems like there'll be no shortage of gameplay variety. Quite how all of this ties together with exploring an old abandoned castle, I have no idea, nor is it obvious how these disparate story threads are pulled together. I'm also very curious about playing as a monster who, as the game description says, feeds on darkness, which is a fascinating feature in its own right, especially as one of the other playable characters specifically fights monsters. I do know that I'm absolutely fascinated to find out how all of this slots together though, especially as the game looks incredibly good from the brief glimpses I've seen thus far. Oh, and if the music from the trailer is any indication of the actual soundtrack from the game, then I am all about it. Inmost looks like a deliciously atmospheric, creepy platformer. A bit like Celeste run through a Castlevania filter, but terrifying as opposed to emotional. I know I can't wait to dive into it when it comes to PC and Switch sometime in 2019.
Product not yet rated.